Alright guys, so in this video I'm going to show you the two exercises we use with our clients all of the time to open up the front of their hip and to improve hip extension. It's a very important movement and these exercises will help. So one of the big commonalities that we've noticed from a lot of the great athletes that we've worked with is they can create big separation at their hips, regardless of if they're a sprinter, a rugby player, a footballer. If they can run well, they can create big shapes between both hips. So they can really get one hip into extension and one hip into flexion. And that's what allows them to push and switch. And when you're lacking that hip extension, you can't really push anywhere. If you think about old people walking down the street, they actually keep their legs always either in front of them or underneath them. They never really push into this position. And this is well known. People are trying to improve hip extension all over the world, and people are saying that they have tight hip flexors all over the world. But I think the mistake that they make is usually trying to do couch stretches all of the time, because what they do when I get into this position is you're actually putting yourself into your end range hip extension to begin with. A lot of people will end up down in a position like this, and then to come up tall from there, because they already feel a massive stretch, they have no choice but to just extend through their back. And that back extension is a direct compensation for hip extension. When you can't extend your hip through, you're going to end up extending your back through instead, and this exercise kind of puts you into that, and it actually tries to get you into hip extension with a lot of knee flexion, which just puts a humongous stretch through your rectus femoris. Like even me here, I've improved my hips a lot over the years, and I can get up tall here, I can squeeze my butt, and it's kind of a disgusting stretch because you're actually stretching that muscle from both ends at the same time, which doesn't actually happen that much, not through that range when we go and move. So instead of the couch stretch, I'll show you two exercises where we actually separate out the hip extension, which is like opening up this part from the rectus femoris and some of the tissues below the hip. So if we grab a plate and I come up into this hip extension position on a box. So I have my left foot up in front, and the key point now is I'm actually going to come up onto my toe on my right side, and I'm going to squeeze my right glute nice and tall. Nice and hard, sorry, not tall. I'm going to keep my spine nice and tall. So straight away into this position, I can get into as much or more hip extension than I did in the couch stretch, but I'm not actually getting this disgusting stretch in the rec fem. If we're trying to improve hip extension, then let's focus on hip extension rather than hip extension and knee flexion at the same time. So even in this position now, think top of the head to the sky. Don't think chest up. We want to stay in this stacked position. Don't think tuck your pelvis. Literally just try and stay as long as you can through your spine. Come forward and then squeeze your butt as hard as you can. So that's your base position. And now what you're going to feel is much more of this like front and just inside of the hip. From there, we can start to explore that position where we, number one, don't lose this butt squeeze. Number two, don't lose this kind of forward position. And we just start to rotate left and right from there. And I'm actually going to I'm picking up a lot of kind of psoas winding feeling as I start to rotate my spine left and right. So if I show you that from a front view, all the same stuff, I'm going to come here and I'm just going to rotate, and it actually gets much more psoasy, like deep in under your abs. And that's the type of stretch, and straight down into the front of your hip. That's the stretch that you're looking for if you're going to try and improve hip extension. So 3 positions here. Number 1, just get into it, play around with it. Number 2, you can rotate. Number 3, you can come up overhead and laterally flex. And again, it's very psoasy, very like down into the inside of the hip here. And number 3, we can actually just come up overhead. We're trying to not just like flare our ribs up, but we're not trying to like extend through our lower back. Maybe I can show you from a side view again. We're trying to not just extend through our back here and lean backwards. We're trying to, as the weight comes up, the sternum can lift a little bit, so it's a little bit more thoracic extension than lumbar extension. So butt squeezed, spine long, weight comes up, weight comes up, and obviously you can do that into different directions. So then if you want to make this a little bit more dynamic, this isn't the second exercise, I'll show you that in a sec, but if you want to make this a little bit more dynamic, you can just do a lunge into it. So if I put my right foot in front, I'm still working on my right hip extension now. I'm going to lunge backwards. So I'm still thinking I'm on my right leg. And then from there, I'm going to push up into this position. And then we can use the plate to be a little bit more dynamic and twist it and turn it and reach it up overhead. So it looks something like this. I can do a reverse lunge, and then I can twist up into this position. You're trying to find that tall position, butt squeezed, or at least just not floppy and extended from there. I can twist in, I can reach up overhead, I can play around. To be honest, the two that feel most natural there are reverse lunge, where I twist over my right leg, then I twist over my left leg. I get a really nice stretch through there, and then I'm getting out of breath. The second one is twist in and then reach up overhead, and then it becomes much more of this like full line up here. Okay, and then for exercise 2, I'm actually going to come around this side of the bench so that I can still show you my right leg. So I'm going to put my left foot in front here, and I'm going to do a split squat, and it's just a split squat. It's not the couch stretch, but it's kind of better. So if I do a split squat, the key point here is I'm actually going to put my front shin against the bench so that I cannot come into a positive shin angle. We spend so much time in our work, if you watch other videos, talking about getting people into positive shin angles. And in this exercise, we're going to block that. You're not allowed to have your shin anything past vertical. You're going to try and get into this stacked position, and then you're going to try and drop down. And what this does is it actually puts a lot of length and load through the back leg. I use this in a lot of our quad rehabs as well and our rec fem rehabs. So it is better because as you start from the top and as you come down, you can pick up this tension on the way down rather than starting in this couch stretch position, being like, okay, I am in trouble here. And now I need to extend up and try and find more, which you're not able to do because you don't have that range. So start, knee cannot travel forward, head, rib cage, pelvis, stacked, doesn't mean crunch down. Squeeze that butt just a little bit, and then down you go. And now you're picking up that tension in that rec fem as you go down. If you're a tight person, that's what you need to learn to do rather than just slamming yourself into end range. If you want to make this worse, think stacked and then think hip extension. So kind of lean back, that's nasty already now. I'm saying lean back, I'm not saying back extend. I'm saying it's almost like a backwards hinge. Does that make sense? I'm going to need a longer stance. And then there's a lot of load through the front of the hip, but it's more so targeted towards the rec fem there. So, okay, so that's the video. In terms of programming, I would usually give my clients the toe off hip flexor stretch, which is the one up on the box. I would give them that almost before any run that they do or any exercises where they need to create that separation so that where they're doing bounds or hops, where they're traveling forwards, where there's a horizontal push. In terms of that, you can do 12 reps there, and it could be 4 of the rotations, 4 of the lateral flexions overhead, and then 4 of the down and ups. And then you could do another set of 12 reps where you do the lunge up onto the box. This one here, this would be more of a strength exercise, and I would view it as a strength exercise. I would say, okay, you're someone that needs to improve this hip extension and load this rec fem through that range. So we would do 3 sets of 6 reps. Maybe we'd have a plate or dumbbells once or twice a week, or maybe once a week we do this with the vertical shin, and then the other time of the week we do it our short split squat or something like that, where we push our shin a bit more forward. I hope you liked the video. I hope it helps. We're playing around with YouTube type of content, trying to figure out what works best. I kind of like this conversational style rather than being too rigid, saying like, this is exercise 1 and it has to be done in this exact way. I think we'd like to play around with it. So let us know what you think of the video. If you do like that type of style, maybe I'll listen to you, maybe I won't, but your feedback would be helpful. Drop any questions or comments below if you have any more requests, and like, share, subscribe, all of that stuff. Catch you guys next time.